Have you ever felt like you're reading an old story, but it's actually reading you? Ancient myths aren't just entertainment, they're mirrors. In their epic tales of gods, monsters, and heroes, we often find the uncomfortable, timeless truths of our own lives staring right back at us. These tragedies survive for centuries not just because they're dramatic, but because they capture profound sorrows and inescapable patterns that we still recognize today. One of the most heart-wrenching of these is the Persian tragedy of Sohrab and Rostam, the story of a father who unknowingly kills his own son in battle. It's a classic tale of mistaken identity, pride, and cruel fate. But what if we peel back the layers of heroism and honor? A modern poetic retelling of this myth does just that, and it reveals a colder, more terrifying core. Today, we're going to explore 4 haunting takeaways from this version of the story by looking at how it transforms abstract ideas into tangible characters and recast the central conflict as a blind ritual. We can uncover deeper truths about destiny, recognition, and the cyclical nature of human sorrow. First, in this story, fate isn't a concept, it's a character. From his earliest childhood, the young hero Sohrab has a constant companion. It's not a friend or an imaginary playmate. It's a literal shadow. But this is no ordinary shadow. It doesn't disappear in the light. It has weight. It has presence. Sohrab knew it was real because, as he reasoned, imagination doesn't breathe this heavily. This shadow is a tangible, breathing entity, a constant, ominous presence at his side, and it whispers a chilling, unambiguous prophecy into his ear. You will be killed by someone who loves you, even if he himself does not know it. This personification of destiny is terrifying because it removes any illusion of choice. Sohrab isn't a hero setting out to overcome a challenge. He's a sacrifice, chosen long ago. His life is not his own. It's a countdown. The most horrifying moment in this story doesn't happen during the heat of battle. It happens just before it begins. As Sohrab prepares to face the great champion Rostam, he sees the shadow move. In a single, silent action, the entity detaches from him. It glides across the battlefield and comes to a stop directly behind his father, Rostam. In that silent, dreadful transfer, the burden of fate passes from the victim to the executioner. The tragedy is sealed. By making fate a physical character, the story turns the heroes into puppets. Their actions are no longer their own, but merely steps in a pre-written, inescapable play. The second takeaway is that the fight itself is a ritual, not a conflict. The entire atmosphere of the battle is unnatural and foreboding. The world itself seems to be a knowing participant in the tragedy about to unfold. The wind doesn't blow. The story says it crawled across the ground. The earth under Sohrab's feet is described as being warm, not from the sun's heat, but with a fever, as if the land itself is sick with anticipation. With every blow exchanged between father and son, the earth groans. And as their swords clash, a silent laughter rises from the soil, a sound that the story says could only be heard in the bones. The universe understands that what is happening is not a contest to be won, it's a ceremony to be completed. This idea is crystallized in the description of the final fatal blow. It is delivered without passion, without malice, without even strategic intent. Rostam, the great warrior, acts not as a fighter driven by a will to win, but as an instrument, a tool, fulfilling a function. The line that captures this is devastatingly simple. Rostam struck, not from anger, from habit. That one sentence reveals everything. The fight has become a grim, preordained ritual. He is just going through the motions of being a warrior, the motions he has practiced his entire life. This ritualistic detachment isn't just a stylistic choice. It is the direct cause of the story's central failure. The failure of recognition. Rostam is simply performing his tragic role, his actions dictated not by the heat of the moment, but by the cold, mechanical weight of destiny. This leads us to our third, and perhaps most painful, insight. The true tragedy isn't a mistake, it's blindness. The original myth is often understood as a tragedy of mistaken identity. If only Rostam had known who Sohrab was, none of this would have happened. But this retelling reframes the tragedy as a deeper, more profound failure. It's not about mistaken identity. It's about a complete lack of recognition. The story makes a crucial observation. As the battle began, Rostam was not looking at Sohrab. He was staring at something behind him, the shadow. He wasn't fighting his son. He wasn't even fighting a man. He was fighting a symbol, an abstraction, a faceless enemy. He was completely blind to the individual standing right in front of him. When Rostam's blade finally finds its mark, the wound itself is surreal. Blood did not come out. Not immediately. First, darkness poured out. This isn't just a physical injury. It's a spiritual death preceding the physical one, a visible manifestation of the void at the heart of their conflict. The darkness that pours out is the emptiness of their relationship, the unseeing, the not. But the climax of this theme arrives not with the wound, but with the moment of sight that comes after. After Sohrab falls, Rostam finally notices the family token on his son's arm. He recognizes him, and in this moment of horrifying clarity, Sohrab offers a quiet, devastating summary of the entire tragedy. He looks at his father and says, "Finally, you saw me." These words reframe everything. The ultimate wound wasn't the blade. It was a lifetime of invisibility, a lifetime of being unseen by his own father, a condition cured only by death. The fatal blow was struck in blindness, and sight was restored only when it was far too late. Finally, the story makes it clear that this sorrow is an endless, universal cycle. That devastating moment of sight, arriving only in death, is what locks the tragedy into a repeating loop. After recognizing his son, Rostam is now cursed with perfect, agonizing clarity. He is no longer blind. He sees everything. The story tells us that now Rostam must see his son everywhere, in the face of every young soldier, in the shape of every fallen enemy. His punishment is not guilt, but vision. He is doomed to see the sun he failed to see when it mattered most over and over again for the rest of his life. This is where the story transcends its own characters and becomes a commentary on all human sorrow. Rostam, now burdened with this terrible sight, becomes a new kind of shadow. He is a walking embodiment of grief and regret. He is destined to wander, and in his wanderings he will inevitably cast his own shadow on a new generation. The story closes with a haunting image. An unknown young boy, somewhere far away, feels a sudden chill and turns to find a new shadow standing behind him. A shadow that wasn't there before. A shadow that breathes heavily. The cycle begins again. The sorrow is not a single event. It is a legacy. It's a curse passed down from one generation to the next. What began with a father failing to see his son ends with that same father becoming the very spectre of that failure, doomed to inflict it upon others. In the end, this retelling of Sohrab and Rostam shows us that the most frightening monsters aren't the ones with claws and fangs. They are the shadows that follow us, the rituals we perform without thinking, and the blindness that prevents us from truly seeing the people we love. It's a reminder that the greatest tragedies often happen not in a clash of swords, but in a quiet failure of recognition. The story asks us to look closer, to see beyond the symbols and roles we assign to people, and to recognize the person standing right in front of us before it's too late. Because sometimes the person we are fighting might be the one we love the most. Thanks for watching. If this story resonated with you, let us know in the comments. And do not forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories that shape our world.